Hello, welcome to the tutorial of Wintempla. Today we will be talking about variables. A variable allows the computer to store information in the memory of the computer. Each variable stores a value that is used during program execution. A variable has a name and a type. The figure shows a variable to store the age of a person. The keyword int is used to create a variable to store an integer number such as 4, 20, 45, etc. The variable name is age and the initial value is set to 20. Note that the instruction ends with a semicolon. Tip: a variable is similar to when a human makes an effort to remember some sort of information. Even though humans can remember things without taking a specific action, computers always require the program declaring a variable so that the computer can reserve memory space for the variable. Variable name: a program variable requires a name so that the programmer and the computer can manipulate the value stored in the variable. The variable can have any name, and the computer does not care about the name of the variable. However, the programmer must assign an appropriate name to the variable so that the code is easy to read. Variable type: the variable type indicates what type of information will be stored in the variable. Generally, the existing variable types in programming languages must allow mapping human events and objects to the language of the computer. The table below shows the most typical variable types. An integer number for humans is represented as int inside a program. A fractional number inside the computer is represented with the keyword doubly. A value with a value of yes or not, or true or false, is represented in a computer program with bool, and in some cases with the data type Boolean. The date that humans use to represent a specific point in time is represented in a computer program by the keyword system time or systime. In some languages, you will find other data types for date. For humans, the color of an object is represented by color ref in computers. In other languages, you will find other data types. In Windows, Microsoft Windows, in the language of C++, you will be finding system time and color ref. For humans, the text, such as the name of a person, the name of a street, is represented in a computer program by a W string variable or a W_T variable. Tip: to declare a variable, first decide what type of information will be stored in the variable, and then choose a name that best represents the variable. The table below shows some correct examples of variable declaration. Let's move to the first example. I have 5 children. Because the number of children is an integer value, we will use int. Now we need to choose a name for the variable. In this case, child count is chosen. And then the initial value is set to 5, and don't forget the semicolon. She has 2 cars. Again, because the number of cars is an integer value, we use int. The name of the variable is num_cars, and the initial value is 2, and the sentence ends with a semicolon. Peter weighs 100.5 pounds. Because the weight of a person can be a fractional value, as in this case, we use the word doubly, the data type doubly. The name of the variable is Peter weight, and the initial value is set to 100.5, and we end the sentence with a semicolon. Mary is sexy. Because there are only 2 choices, Mary is sexy or Mary is not sexy, we will use the bool data type. The name of the variable begins with is sexy, that's the name, and the initial value is set to true, and we end with a semicolon. He does not like pizza. As the previous example, there are only 2 choices. Either he does like pizza or he does not like pizza. So again, we will use the data type bool, and the name is likes pizza. The initial value is set to false, and a semicolon to end the sentence. His name is John. Because the name of a person is represented by the text John, we will use the data type W_string, and the name of the variable in this case is name, and the initial value is set to John. All text is set using quotes. In this specific case, you will see the letter L to indicate that each letter in John, it uses 2 bytes. We will discuss more about text. For now, we will just mention that if instead of using W_string you use string in C++, you don't need the L letter before the string. Don't forget the semicolon. The car is green. In Windows C++, we have color ref. The name of the variable is car color, and the initial value is set to 0 of red, 200 of green, and 0 of blue. Semicolon. And the last example, his tie is blue. Again, it's a color, so we use color ref. The name is tie color, and the initial value is set to blue, so we have 0 of red and 0 of green. Tip: the color ref data type takes 3 values from 0 to 255. These values represent the 3 basic colors: red R, green G, and blue B. All colors can be expressed as a combination of the basic colors red, green, and blue. Let's move to the problems. You can work on your own on these problems, and you can use them to practice during class. Problem 1, complete the table. There are 2 trains. In this case, because the number of trains is represented by an integer value, we choose the keyword int space, and now we need to choose a name that best represents the number of trains. In this case, we're going to be using the same notation that we used in previous example, number of trains. And then we set this to 2, and don't forget the semicolon. Remember, you need to use a short name that best represents the example. There are more exercises that you can work on later. And now let's move to the next tip. Never use generic variable names such as X, Y, Z, A, B, C, etc. You may use generic names only when these names are standard. In other words, they make sense in the context of the program or the problem. For example, suppose that you would like to represent a point in a 2D dimensional space, in this case, naming the variables X and Y is correct. Tip: good programming techniques recommend assigning short and clear names to the variable of a program. Additionally, variable names can contain only numbers, letters, and underscores. Last, variable names cannot start with a number. I'm going to be reading these problems and you will need to work on them on your own. Problem number 2. Indicate whether the following statement is true or false. The int and doubly data types are equal because they are used to store numbers and can be used without any distinction. For instance, the age of a person can be stored in a variable of type int or doubly. Problem number 3. Indicate whether the following statement is true or false. The bool data type can be used to store numbers in a similar way as the int data type. However, the bool data type is very popular because it can also store the values of true and false. Problem 4. Indicate whether the following statement is true or false. All variables must be declared before they can be used. That is, we have to assign a name and a type to each variable to declare it. Problem number 5. Indicate whether the following statement is true or false. The name of the variables are completely independent of the data type that they store, but long variable names may slow down the program. Problem number 6. Complete the table indicating if the variable declaration is correct. We have a tip for those using Java. A Boolean value to store a value of true or false is declared using Boolean instead of bool. And last, we have a summary. We have 4 steps. Number 1, choose a data type that best represents the information that will be stored in the variable. Bool, int, doubly, double string, etc. Step number 2, choose a short name that best represents the information that will be stored in the variable. Step number 3, set the initial variable value. And the last step, end the sentence with a semicolon. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to check more examples in the tutorial, you can use Google to download Wintempla. Just type Wintempla and you will be taken to a Microsoft website where you can download Wintempla. Thank you so much and have a great day.